Brad. Brad. Are we ready? Good. Okay, well, thanks for coming tonight. Call the reorganization meeting to order. We'll start by calling for nominations for a temporary president.
I'd like to nominate Bradley Norfolk.
No second required. Motions, any other nominees? The motions are closed. We vote.
No, he's,
Oh, by,
he will be elected by acclamation to be the temporary president to do the agenda until the president's elected.
all right. To begin, the salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Ms. Patisky?
Here.
Mrs. Blomgren?
Here.
Mrs. Chaikin?
Here.
Mr. Cormack?
Here.
Mr. Kaufman?
Here.
Mr. Merkel-Gump?
Here.
Mrs. Rash?
Here.
Mrs. Serrano?
Here.
And Mr. Word.
Here.
All right, we will now take public comment.
The list is here.
Excellent, thank you. All right. Matt Carbonaro, you'll kick us off. Correct. We have the policy.
Yeah.
One moment. According to policy 903, public comment on matters of concern, official action, or deliberation is limited to 3 minutes. Should be directed to the entire school board following the announcement of your name and municipality. Under this policy, the presiding officer has the authority to warn or stop public commenter when violation of this policy occurs. Apologies, you may proceed.
Thank you. Good evening, Matt Carbonaro, Percy Borough. My public comment pertains to policy 321, better known as the advocacy policy. I really don't believe this should be a political issue at all with this policy. It is not an extremist and hurtful, as some will say on the opposing side. Teachers are there to teach students. Students are there to learn. It is about simple math, reading, and arithmetic, in accordance with the board-approved curriculum. I will be fortunate one day in the next, hopefully a couple years, to have a family soon. I don't believe students should be under the pretense or the umbrella of being safe spaces. The other side will point and paint and call these students marginalized. Can anyone really define what a marginalized student really is? Moreover, this is a direct result of the Pembridge Community Lions flat out lying to the public while running last fall. They ran on pretending to be moderate. First, they had started with men and girls sports and bathrooms, and then was the library policy. Now it's about repealing of the advocacy policy. My question for the board, where does it stop with this policy? If this policy were to be repealed, would we be comfortable if the teacher had an NRA flag? Would we be comfortable in a classroom with a pride flag? Would we be having comfortability with teachers having their own interpretation of the Israeli and Palestine conflict, therefore a pro-Hamas Israeli flag? You get the point. These symbols are political and not educational. I believe, as I alluded in my previous point, keep this policy in place. This to me is a check and balance on the teachers as a whole. The country and community rejected left-wing extremism 4 weeks ago, and I'm thankful for that. President Trump ran on a consensus approach. President Biden's illegal rewrite of Title IX will be rejected in 50 days. Congress and the executive branch will get to work on this mess. Lots of work to do, only 4 short years to clean up this mess. The Kennedge community is aware and won't be fooled by the lies of extremism anymore. Thank you.
Next up, Adam Benzik. On deck, Kevin Foster.
Adam Benchik, East Rock Hill. I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you to our current board for all they accomplished in the last year. I'm sure a lot of people remember the school board as it was before. School board meetings that were, we had fighting, disrespect, and a focus on national culture war issues that seem like they're not going to go away. I remember policies that were written by political action committees with no connection to Penn Ridge. I remember wasting taxpayer dollars on unqualified consultants. And I really just want to thank you for your return to a little bit of normalcy. I want to thank you for the transparency of the board, the new library policy, sharing the RFPs for the solicitor search online, even though it didn't go the way I wanted it to, but that's the way things work. And for considering the policy changes in a deliberate way, allowing for comment and discussion every step of the way, nothing being shoved on the agenda last minute. The incoming presidential administration's hostility towards public education brings a lot of uncertainty. It's more important than ever that our board has competent, qualified leaders that will fight for our children's future. I look forward to the vote tonight. I look forward to seeing you guys in action for the next year. And I hope you will keep in mind our children's future is in your hands. So thank you very much.
All right, Kevin Foster, and on deck is Stacy Smith.
Kevin Foster, Hilltown Township. I'm a father of 3 Penn Ridge kids, a proud product of the public education system, and I am an advocate for a strong and stable Penn Ridge. First off, I wanted to thank the board majority, our administration led by Mr. Berrios, and all of our valued staff for all they have done for Penn Ridge, especially over the last 12 months. I am relieved to see a new focus of responsible leadership built on a renewed partnership, which is so key between board, administration, and staff. A focus on doing what is best for all of Penn Ridge. A curriculum system focused on academic outcomes and addressing the needs of our students, not the political will of partisan outsiders. A continued focus on conservative fiscal responsibility with another year of not raising taxes. Restoring the teaching of American history through curriculum written by our valued Penn Ridge staff. And most of all, respecting our staff. Penn Ridge is one of the largest employers in the 8 municipalities across the district. When Penn Ridge is unstable, many people's livelihoods are unstable. They bring stress home to their families. They worry about their job security. I remember the stress of 2023 and the chaos, the successful and attempted termination of district employees by a rogue school board, the jamming in of new curriculum on the first day of school, the handing out of open-ended contracts to Zoom-based curriculum consultants from Michigan. These folks who are the agents of chaos in our district are back again. Tonight, they will defend a policy written by a Harrisburg-based lobbying firm meant for one thing and one thing only, to divide our community again. We also still have school board members who have a sole focus on the culture wars, not improving our curriculum, not respecting our staff, not controlling costs, not even doing the basic work of preparing for meetings. These board members will vote tonight to prevent the policy written by the Harrisburg lobbying firm, the ILC, from being revoked by stoking fear and national talking points in an attempt to wrap our staff in red tape, to tell our staff that they aren't respected or trusted. It's simply all they have. To our board majority, keep up the good work, keep doing what is right for the district, and keep putting our students, staff, and taxpayers first. Thank you.
Stacy Smith, and on deck, Ross McLennan.
Hello, Stacy Smith, Percy. I first want to say thank you to the board for your hard work over the last year, especially for your efforts to put trust back into the administration and the staff where it belongs. I haven't spoken in almost a year, and that's because I've been pretty pleased with how you've been handling most of the issues that have come up, so again, thank you. I did write a letter to the board in October about this when it first came up for review, but I just wanted to reiterate my support of repealing the current advocacy policy authored by the Independence Law Center and reinstating the political activities policy. It never made sense to me why the political activities policy was hijacked to create the advocacy policy in the first place. The two are not even related. By replacing one with the other, they're insinuating that advocacy and political activities are one and the same. Maybe it's easier to revise a policy than to create a whole new one, I don't know. Regardless, this policy, as it's written now, is incredibly vague, confusing, and discriminatory. As you may all remember, those concerns about the provisions were brought up to the board in large numbers when it was first introduced, but they were all ignored. The whole point of advocacy is to support someone or a group who are not getting enough of it, or because there is a need for awareness around an issue that's not getting enough attention. Should teachers and staff be engaging in political activities during work hours? Probably not, which is why the original political activities policy was put in place. However, why would we tell our administration and staff not to advocate for our most vulnerable, excluded, isolated, or under-resourced student populations? What does that say about us as a district if we are not willing to support whole portions of our own school community? Think about how this trickles down to the way students treat each other. Instead, we have not only ignored them in hopes that the very real and serious issues our district has with bullying and discrimination would just go away, but we have also dehumanized people by reducing them down to mere beliefs. Is anyone batting an eye at all the attention we as a district bring to breast cancer awareness in October? No, because you would be a monster to stand up and say we shouldn't advocate for people with cancer. But the way the advocacy policy is written, we are violating it by doing so. Our schools should be a safe place where students feel comfortable being themselves and know that there are teachers and staff who will support them in that. If a staff member is clearly violating some kind of state or federal laws like separation of church and state or anti-discrimination laws, or overstepping some kind of ethical boundary, these incredibly isolated incidents can be handled by our highly capable administration. We do not need a policy that was created by an outside organization for a problem that didn't exist, and other portions of our student body and staff, just because a few people were uncomfortable with safe space stickers on some classroom doors. I'm certain that most of the students that don't need it are barely even paying attention and could care less. However, for the students that do need it, it can be a literal lifesaver. Please repeal the advocacy policy and reinstate the political activities policy tonight, and let's move on from these culture war issues. Thank you.
Ross McLennan, and on deck, Kim Badillion.
Ross McLennan, Hilltown. Mr. President, sir, I'll address these to you. First of all, I hope you had a nice Native American Heritage Day. That was Friday, and of course, there was too much turkey over the weekend, so I'm still a little tired. I agree with the reinstatement of Policy 321, political activity, and repealing the current Policy 321, advocacy. It's coming up on 3 years that many of our schools' books were challenged by Monster Liberty and other right-wing groups. Dozens of books, it turns out, were removed and weeded. Book banning started at Penridge. 12 of these books, I'm using this prop again, Perks of Being a Wallflower were removed without following a process, just taken away and banned. Now this book is going to be back in the school, and I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. That's it. Thank you.
Kim Badillion, and on deck, Laura Foster.
Kim Badillion, Percy Borough. During the 2021 school year, a Penridge English teacher distributed Safe Triangle rainbow stickers to teachers and staff for displaying classrooms and offices to signal to struggling students that they were safe with this staff member, who is also open to having private conversations with them about their sexuality or gender confusion. No parents needed to know. She also advocated for teachers to announce to students their preferred pronouns and for students to reciprocate. If the student wanted the teacher to keep their preferred pronouns a secret from parents, again, no problem. The same teacher doubled down on her advocacy for displaying in her classroom a large poster that stated, quote, "This is a safe and inclusive space for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender students and allies," unquote. Not to be outdone, Seiler Elementary put up a bulletin board aimed at their young students promoting LGBTQ Pride Month. A librarian used the Penridge High School's library's official Twitter account to promote and encourage students to participate in the Day of Silence, in which students pledged to be silent for an entire day, a school day, mind you, to symbolically represent the alleged silencing of LGBTQ students. These incidents and more were the impetus for updating school board policy to not only prohibit teachers and staff from promoting their personal political beliefs during the school day, but also to prohibit them from promoting their personal beliefs on other controversial topics, such as religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, and matters involving social and geopolitical matters. The updated policy made it clear that discussion and study of these matters could take place in the classroom, but only when applicable, to approved curriculum, and with the caveat that the topics must be presented in a balanced and factual manner. Now this board is contemplating retiring the current advocacy policy with its enhanced protections for students and returning to the prior version that only prohibited political advocacy in the classroom. Given the public statements made by several board members expressing their desire for the return of flags, stickers, and posters highlighting the sexuality and gender identity of children, as well as the statements by 2 board members saying it is best practices for teachers to ask children for their preferred pronouns and to keep that information secret from parents if the child requests it. It is clear what is motivating the school board directors pushing for this policy change. The community does not want classrooms turned back into incubators for indoctrination on social issues. Those issues fall under the purview of their parents, and that is where they must remain. Please keep the advocacy policy intact.
Laura Foster, on deck, Maggie Connell.
Hey, Laura Foster, East Rock Hill. I want to thank the administration and the librarians for going through the process and allowing Perks of Being a Wallflower back in the school. It was a book that had a big impact on me growing up, and so I'm very happy to see it back in the school district. I also want to thank the majority of the board for focusing on what our community wants over the last year and what our community voted for, and not what the Independence Law Center and outside lobbying groups want for our school. The advocacy policy at its core undermines the fundamental trust and connection between students and the educators they look to for guidance, care, and understanding. Teachers and school staff are not just instructors, they are mentors, they are role models, and lifelines for the countless children facing challenges that extend far beyond the classroom. Removing this policy will ensure that our educators can do what any professional working with children should be empowered to do: offer support, listen without fear, and connect students to the care that they need. It's creating a safe and welcoming environment where students feel seen, heard, and valued. That's what every child deserves. Unfortunately, there are those who oppose this removal, not because they seek to solve problems or improve our schools. It's because they want to manufacture controversy where none exists. They want to distract us from the needs of the community with performative outrage and culture wars that only serve to divide. These individuals exploit our schools as a stage for performance art, gaining attention for themselves while offering no real solutions to the pressing issues of education. Instead of focusing on strengthening academics, supporting mental health, or fostering inclusivity, they create insecurity and fear. They sow distrust between students, families, and educators, ultimately harming the very child they claim to protect. So let's be clear, this is not about politics, it is about people. Removing this harmful policy is about giving our teachers the tools to do what they do best, which is care for our children. It's about allowing students to feel safe sharing their struggles and ensuring that they have access to the resources they need to thrive. One could say that marginalized groups are ones where there's open hate towards them. We have seen that in our school district. Recently I heard about the swastika graffiti that occurred last week or perhaps the week before. I think it was at the high school. I was wondering if the school could share what the district's response has been to this incident, specifically if it's been reported to the police, and if there's a plan to communicate to the community about what happened and how it's being addressed. Thank you.
Next up, Maggie Connolly, followed by Katie Renee.
Hi y'all, Maggie Connolly, Berkeley Borough. As I was listening to the back and forth on the issue of amending policy 321 a couple weeks ago, I realized there were basically two discussions going on. The one I was prepared for was, should teachers invite discussion of sensitive topics with children? Left-leaning members of the board portrayed this as harmless, because after all, they can't get children to name and date their papers, so how much sway do teachers really have? While pithy, it's also evidence of either ignorance or obfuscation. Are you really unfamiliar with peer pressure, or the effects of persuasion by authority figures? Stanley Milgram got ordinary folks to electrocute perfect strangers on the basis of, trust me, it's fine. You don't think a favorite teacher can have influence? If you really feel you don't have any influence over your students, what are you doing in front of them for 7 hours a day? Interestingly, yet another left-leaning member of the board cited in support of changing the advocacy policy that, well, all the other districts are doing it. The other discussion being had was, should parents know when teachers invite discussion of sensitive topics with their children? The teachers my husband and I have entrusted with our children's education so far have been really good on the whole. To be fair, they're still in elementary and have not yet met with any South Middle School guidance counselors, so our exposure has been fairly limited. Be that as it may, one thing my kids' teachers have always done, which I really appreciate, is sending home a getting to know you questionnaire at the beginning of the school year. This has given me the opportunity to tell them things about my kids like lactose intolerance, colorblindness, etc. I appreciate that they ask these things because how else would they know? They don't know my kid. I love my kids so much it hurts. I would burn alive to keep them warm. Nothing makes me so happy as when my kids are happy. Nothing makes me hurt so much as when my kids are hurt. It is my privilege and my responsibility to keep my kids safe. The most important thing I will ever do is raise my children. And you think it's remotely reasonable for a teacher who didn't know my kid from Adam 3 months ago to be keeping secrets about him from me? You're out your darn minds.
Katie Renee, and on deck, Bill Satino.
Hi, Katie Renee, Berkeley Borough. I'm a Penridge grad, parent, and taxpayer. I'm here to voice my support for the reinstatement of the political activities policy. The advocacy policy was one of many steps taken by the previous board majority that implied a distrust of teachers, even suggesting that they would commit the crime of grooming. A previous speaker referred to the opposing side. The only side I'm on is the side of public education, which includes trusting teachers and their expertise and supporting all students. While I'm here, I'll add that I appreciate the refreshing approach of the board in the last 12 months to have open and transparent discussions on policy and to include administrators in the discussion. Finally, I attended the mental health awareness event earlier this fall, and I thank the district for giving attention to this important issue. Thank you.
Next up, Bill Satino, and on deck, April Foltz.
Bill Satino, Berkeley Borough. Excuse me. Regarding advocacy policy 321, As written now, 321 defines the term advocacy as, quote, using power, position, or authority to advise or persuade. Based on a quick Google search I did earlier, that definition more closely aligns with the term indoctrination. There's a lot of fear stated about teachers indoctrinating their students, as some have stated tonight, from the community as well as some on the board. And let's be clear, that's what some of the members of the board are doing. They're falsely accusing teachers of indoctrinating kids. However, I have to ask, what is a teacher's role? From my perspective, it's not just to educate. Better yet, the best teachers I had when I was in school were those that taught me to think critically about what I was learning and develop my own opinion, which is opposite of indoctrination. I also knew I could go to my teachers for support, whether for school issues or personally, and I think that's what's being missed here. The current policy as it's written vilifies our teachers instead of supporting them. It prevents them from doing their jobs effectively and supporting the students. The staff do an amazing job, and their jobs are hard. Speaking personally, we love our teachers and administration at my kids' school. I'm sure the rest of the district has equally qualified personnel. I support the repeal of 321 to fully let the teachers support their students. Let the administrators address if there are any problems. Respectfully, I think the board does need to stop playing politics like you did last year with our consulting firm. We need to empower the administration to do their jobs in making sure the district is focused on all kids getting a good education. I've seen good things so far with the path the new board is taking, and I really appreciate that. And I sincerely hope it continues tonight. Thank you.
April Foltz.
April Foltz, West Rock Hill Township. So also on policy 321, last year the board approved policy 321, advocacy activities, a supercharged version of the prior policy titled political activities. A big problem with this change is that advocacy and political activities are not the same thing. Further, the policy was written in a way that assumes our teachers and administrators are actively seeking to negatively sway students' core values. It applies a narrow definition that fails to capture the positive elements of advocacy in an educational setting. Our teachers and administrators would likely tell you that a big part of their job is finding ways to bring out the best in each student, offering encouragement, creative outlets, quiet time, or social involvement. When they see a student struggling, they offer a safe space to share concerns and provide support. They are force multipliers, encouraging other students to see when someone needs help and proactively offer it. That's advocacy, supporting and speaking up for students' needs, rights, and concerns, and it's a good thing. Among certain groups, there's a continuing misconception that advocating for one person or group must be done at the expense of another. This simply isn't true. There's no finite quantity of empathy. The mere acknowledgement of differences is not divisive, and pretending they don't exist isn't doing our kids any favors. When they graduate, they won't be shielded from people with different beliefs, experiences, or backgrounds. In the quest for a neutral classroom environment, our students lose a tremendous opportunity to develop important skills and capabilities that will serve them well later in life. The Penridge District website boasts a well-rounded education to equip students for success in an evolving world. Its tenets are the 4 C's: critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. Current policy 321 runs counter to all of those goals, and it should be returned to the prior version. Separately, I'd like to address the use of the term grooming from both community and board members. First, you're not using it correctly. Grooming is when someone intentionally builds a relationship with a young person for the purpose of manipulating, exploiting, or abusing them. Someone merely existing in the presence of your child is not grooming. Exposure to beliefs and perspectives different from your own is not grooming. And on a related note, sexual orientation is not a belief. Second, misusing this term is irresponsible and reckless. Child abuse is a very real problem. Using the word groomer to refer to anyone whose beliefs you don't agree with minimizes actual abuse and can make it more difficult for children to identify and report when they are experiencing abuse. Please consider this in your future comments. Thank you.
Next up, we'll have a quick explanation from Mr. Miller about what we are all about to see here tonight as we move through the change in leadership for today's board meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Merkel-Gump. Under Section 404 of the School Code, the board is required tonight to elect a president and a vice president. The process has been explained to the board, but just for transparency's sake, we'll make it clear. Each member may nominate one member of the board to fill the position. Nominations don't need to be seconded, but nominations seem to either be closed because there are no further nominations, or there's a motion to close nominations. We will then have a vote. That vote will be done by roll call. Nancy, you were going to be up, so there you go. And then the individual receiving the majority of the votes will be elected president. We will then elect a vice president after that. So, Mr. Merkel-Gump, it would be in order to call for nominations for a candidate for president.
I call for nominations for a candidate for president.
I nominate Ron Wertz.
I'd like to nominate Carolyn.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any further nominations? And our last call for further nominations.
Mr. Merkel-Gump, the nominations are closed for president. We will now take a vote by roll call. The individuals voting simply state the name of the person they are supporting. You do not have to vote for the person you nominated. You have the choice to vote for whomever you wish that is under the nominations.
Ms. Batiste?
Mr. Wertz.
Mrs. Blomgren?
Carolyn.
Mrs. Chaikin?
Carolyn.
Mr. Cormack?
Ron Wertz.
Mr. Kaufman?
Mr. Wertz.
Mr. Merkel-Gump?
Mr. Wurs.
Mrs. Rash?
Ron Wertz.
Mrs. Sharino?
Mr. Wertz.
And Mr. Wertz.
So,
Congratulations, Mr. Wurs is now the president, and the regime of Merkel-Gump is over.
It has been my pleasure and my honor.
thank you.
Mr. President, using the same process, it is appropriate to call for nominations for vice president.
I'd like to call for nominations for vice president to serve a one-year term. Floor is open.
I'd like to nominate Ms. Sharino.
I'd like to nominate Ms. Batiste.
Two nom- Any other nominations? Fine. One more time, any nominations? All right, we'll close nominations and do the roll call. Vote, please.
Ms. Batiste?
Myself.
Mrs. Blomgren?
Christine.
Mrs. Chaikin?
Christine.
Mr. Cormack?
Christine.
Mr. Kaufman?
Ms. Sharino.
Mr. Merkel-Gump?
Ms. Sharino.
Mrs. Rash?
Ms. Sharida.
Mrs. Sharino?
Myself.
And Mr. Wertz.
Ms. Sharino.
She is duly elected.
Congratulations, Ms. Sharino.
Thank you.
All right, moving along. Thank you for coming tonight. Usually do things in a different order, so it's taking longer than normal, so I appreciate those who are hanging out. I hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving break. And I thank those at home for attending and watching through live stream. We appreciate your support for Penn Ridge. I would like to thank our board tonight for their past year's service. I believe we are doing a much better job with our communication, decorum, and transparency. We will continue to work on improving our governance of the school while not micromanaging their day-to-day activities. I believe our administrative team and staff are now well positioned to continue focus on improving the educational opportunities for our students. Tonight, we are voting to approve a resolution to an MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding, regarding planning time for our teachers. With the switch to block scheduling, it became apparent that it was difficult to schedule teacher planning times and duties. I'm pleased to announce that the solution, which we all agreed to, ended up giving our teachers an increase of 50 minutes, or almost 20% more planning time per week, and an easier to manage duty schedule. It's great to be able to provide increased planning time for our teachers, something they have asked for much in the past. Also, it's a cost-neutral solution, meaning it did not increase our budget. I think this is an excellent example of how our board supports our teaching staff. I would like to thank both the administration and the PEA for negotiating this solution. Tonight we are also voting on AP Latin, adding AP Latin to our curriculum. We will continue to expand our AP program in order to provide challenging curriculum for our students and help defray the costs of higher education. As part of our focus on mental health, the board has asked the administration to review our policies and training on anti-bullying for our students and staff. While traditional bullying is still a serious problem, the problems with social media and cell phones have exacerbated the situation. We will continue to focus on this addition and in addition to other topics to ensure that our students feel welcome and safe at school. I'm also pleased to announce that we will be changing the name and substance of the Activities Committee. Our renamed Student Services Committee will have an expanded mission and focus more on student success and well-being. The new Student Services Committee will focus on many different areas to help our students succeed in school and to be successful citizens. This idea was first brought to us by the administration, so I'd like to thank them for agreeing to this and also pushing to move forward. We recently had a board retreat where we focused on how we can do better as a board, including improving communications to the board and the public. This is our third retreat over the last year, demonstrating that we are committed to continuous improvement in everything we do. And finally, I'd like to thank those who supported me for another year as president. I take this responsibility very seriously and will work hard to help make Penridge successful. Thank you. Moving on to Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Wurz. I'd like to congratulate Ms. Sharino on your nomination as Vice President and Mr. Wurz as being re-elected as the Board President. I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving break. Our football team and marching band traveled to Quakertown to play the 95th annual contest. Unfortunately, we lost the game, but it was fun out in the rain. Generated an appetite. You got to hang around with a couple board members and administrators, but I'd like to thank all the fans, the Penridge alum who attended, Mr. Hagan, and everyone who was there, the building principal, and also our marching band parents, and the football parents, the boosters, and if I forgot anyone, please forgive me. Next, I'd like to call our Penridge High School Athletic Director, Mr. Hagan, to the lectern for some accolades to share.
Good evening. Excuse me. Good evening, everyone. This fall season has now come to a wrap with our football game ending on Thursday. But don't worry, we're starting with our basketball tournament this weekend, and our home events will be beginning Friday and Saturday, plus starting with wrestling, swimming, and all of our other sports in the next couple days and weeks. To highlight some of our fall activities, we had 3 student athletes on our cross-country teams that qualified for the state race out in Hershey. 2 of them could not be here tonight, Taylor Burkett and Daniel Lara Lozano. Both did very, very well in their races. But we do have a state qualifier who wound up 13th overall in the state of Pennsylvania, Jackson Warfel. If you and Coach Permar would come down. Jackson, by placing 13th in the state of Pennsylvania, qualified as an all-state runner for the cross-country season. And this past weekend ran up in Boston in the Northeast Regional event as well. It came in 19th in the Northeast region. So congratulations to Jackson and Coach Permar. Jackson's fast. I'm going to put this in perspective, okay? I was never born with speed, but in the state meet, he ran 3.2 miles in 15 minutes and 12 seconds. Okay, I live just about 4 miles from here. There's no way I can beat that race home some days with the traffic on 313. But great job, Jackson. Congratulations. He's only a sophomore, so he's got 2 more full years here at Penn Ridge. Our girls volleyball team won their second Continental Conference championship in a row. Had an unbelievable year. The Suburban 1 League athletic directors, we added to our bylaws this past summer that we now have a player of the year in each conference. So those student athletes are through the voting process for all league. Whoever gets the most votes, the top tier of those athletes that are voted on by the coaches to be the player of the year. And Caitlin Kuntz, who's a senior here at Penn Ridge, became the first student athlete here at Penn Ridge to be the player of the year in the Continental Conference for girls volleyball. Caitlin couldn't be here tonight because her club season has started and she had to drive to practice this evening. But congratulations to Caitlin. And lastly, our water polo teams both had stellar years this year with a new coach, Mrs. Hughes, who's teacher in the building, or Hanson, excuse me, Mrs. Hanson, who's a teacher in the building and did a phenomenal job as a first-year coach. But we had 3 of our student athletes get named to the All-State team. So I'm going to call down Michaela Burrows, who was 3rd team All-State. Honorable mention, Michael Tim. And honorable mention, Bridget Sullivan. Coach Anselmo is also here. Everybody who came out to our events this fall. We're looking forward to a great winter season, especially with those guys in the pool. They're going to do a fantastic job. And we'll hope to see you games starting Friday at 3:30. Take care. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hagan, and thank you to all of our athletes. So on Veterans Day, we hosted a very successful and special event to honor area veterans from across our region. Along with the Palisades and Quakertown Community School Districts, as well as some private schools, the Penn Ridge High School auditorium was filled with 6th grade students, veterans, families, local dignitaries, and staff members. This was sponsored by Representative Craig Statz. It was a wonderful event. We hosted a luncheon for the local veterans afterwards as well. After the event, if you look in the middle of the screen, you'll see the word thanks there. So they are Diebler Elementary School students holding American flags. And Mr. Thomas was able to fly the drone overhead, and it was just a magnificent event. So I thank everyone involved for that outstanding day. Now that December is here, the sounds of holiday music will also be filling our auditorium and gyms in every school. Our top-notch music teachers have been getting our students ready for the past few months, and we encourage everyone to attend the dozens of shows coming up this month. Take a look at the screen. We've gathered all the dates for you, and we'll have this available for you as well. So for your reference, so please come out if you can. November 18th to the 22nd was American Education Week. Tonight we celebrated and highlighted students and staff who are doing amazing things in our schools. You can also check out both our schools' official Facebook pages as well as their websites, which also showcase these great students, staff, and programs very often. At Seiler Elementary, Ms. Jenna Smith's 4th grade class is studying economics in their new social studies program. Students created their own market where they produced and sold their handmade products. Our youngest learners are studying these important topics and developing life skills for their future. Congratulations to their amazing teacher, Jenna Smith, for creating a project-based lesson for her students. You can see some images there. We spent some time at Grass Elementary School this month as well. All of the Penridge School District elementary schools have a project adventure in the curriculum since 2002. Grass teacher Kyle Jerem says, quote, "I enjoy seeing the students who might struggle in other areas excel in the program. It's special to be part of individual and group accomplishments throughout different challenges during their elementary health and physical education experience. Project Adventure is a non-traditional physical education curriculum which is an experiential-based learning process. It focuses on cooperation and encourages students to take risks, accept challenges, and solve problems. Through their group work, students learn to trust and support each other." So if you look to the top left there, you see a young man climbing the rope. It was reminiscent of Marine boot camp. These kids are in fantastic shape. They're doing gymnastics. And you'll see a picture of Mr. Jerem there with a couple students. So it was really an interesting and innovative way to see a gym class. This month we tallied up all of the donations from our schools, clubs, and sports programs for our annual Pink Out at Grandview Hospital. Tonight we have 13,216 more reasons to be proud of our students and staff. This year, through fundraising efforts at South, Middle School, and the high school, we raised a grand total of $13,216.96. These funds will go to the Grandview Health System to continue their fight to wipe out breast cancer in our region and assist the incredible programs already in place to support our local cancer warriors and their families. Penridge High School journalism teacher, Nicole Gordienko, are you here tonight, Ms. Gordienko? She couldn't make it, okay. Not only gets the most out of journalism students for their class assignments in the Penridge High School Pendulum newspaper, but now her passion has led to her article being published in Journalism Education Association's Quarterly Journal. Ms. Gordienko wrote an article about Elon University's journalism professor, Kelly Furness's policies and procedures regarding maintaining ethical standards in a journalism class, student publication pertaining to artificial intelligence and conflicts of interest. The article highlights his strategies and offers suggestions how teachers can implement them in their own programs. Our STEM program continues to expand, and tonight the board will be voting on adding 3 new STEM courses: Advanced STEM Lab, Product Design and Development, STEM Innovation Lab, Manufacturing and Product Entrepreneurship, and Honors Advanced Computer Design and Animation. At the high school, we also have some excellent STEM programs in place, however. 2 teams of gifted and talented students are reaching for the stars with NASA. As part of the Gifted Resource Center at the high school, the teams have produced designs that are among only 20 chosen nationally for the NASA Zero Gravity Prototype Design Challenge. For the last few months, Team CASA, made up of Chloe Benner, Ananya Bhatt, Sorbi Gupta, please come forward if you're here, and Abigail Arnold Trainer, and Penridge men's NASA team, please come forward, Finn Bachman, Gavin Chodoroff, and Gavin Mill have been voluntarily coming to Mrs. Thomas's gifted classroom during their Rams Flex time to design their own concepts of a paddle wheel prototype for water and weightlessness based on NASA's very strict guidelines for microgravity testing. So these students are working on some excellent products, so why don't we give them a round of applause. Thank you. Next, the teams will create their prototypes and send their test objects to NASA's Glenn Research Center in Cleveland for testing. After evaluation of the experimental results and the team's reports, a small number of top-performing teams will be invited to present the results in a student poster session at the 2025 American Society for Gravitational and Space Research meeting. These teams will be announced in mid-May of 2025, so stay tuned. our NASA teams are joining us tonight, so we just had a photo with them, so we thank them. Pembridge High School has had a robotics club for a year now, but after student leaders took the initiative, Pembridge now has its first ever robotics competition team. First Robotics is the premier league for robotics competitions, and the Atlantic Division were so impressed by our students' passion and talent that they were awarded the team $7,000 in grants to start their rookie season. Students from our team as well as tonight are Mr. Farrell from First Robotics are joining us tonight. So if you want to come forward, get a picture. This is. Come on now. You sat through our elections. Please come forward. Excellent work. Thank you. Next, I'll ask Mr. Thomas to come to the lectern.
Thank you, Mr. Barrows and school board members. Tonight, we're talking Pembridge in the news, as we do every month. And many of the stories that you just heard about were also in local newspapers this past month. Socktober, our culminating Socktober collection, connected Pembridge with two organizations focused on ensuring that the homeless in our region have socks to keep them warm. Pembridge schools and the district office gathered 7,000 pairs of socks. The story was in both the North Penn Reporter and the North Penn digital newspaper website. Additionally, in the news this month, our Veterans Day celebration. It was a huge celebration, as we shared earlier. It was not only well attended, but also well covered by our local news agencies. We collaborated with the Bucks County Herald and the North Penn Reporter to provide them dozens of images and also a narrative of the event and quotes from Superintendent Barrios that was used in the article, as you can see. Finally tonight, the new Pembridge website went live a few weeks ago. This is the third week of it being live. And our website development team is working daily to fix and redesign any pages that may not have translated perfectly during our transition. Today, we were able to give authoring access to all administrators so they can start designing their school and department pages and filling in their individual calendars by school and department. We will also be holding 2 days of training sessions with Final Sign to get everyone, as well as hundreds of web pages looking awesome as soon as possible. Once again, Final Sight bought our former web company, Blackboard, so we were thrust into this transition, and although not ideal during this time of year, the time frame was the only time available for this very large undertaking. We sincerely appreciate everyone's continued patience and understanding while the website transition wraps up, and promise everyone that the website will be yet another Pembridge point of pride. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Wirtz, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Can I just jump in real quick? 24 years ago, I graduated high school as an electromechanical tech, and to see the work that you guys have done on the robotics program, far above and beyond anything that I did when I was in school. We programmed on PLCs, the old brick PLCs, and you couldn't tell what you were programming at any time. So I'm excited to see what you guys can come up with, and yeah, I'm excited for the program. So congratulations.
Yeah, I love watching those competitions. I hope you guys do well. It's are you actually the ones who are going to build the robots too? Yeah, but I'm looking forward to that. Make sure everybody knows about it. So moving on, the student liaison report. Isabel is asked to take Brendan, taking her place. All yours.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brendan Ray. I'm just filling in for Isabella today. We're both on the student council as officers. And I just wanted to share a couple things that are happening in the school right now. So as you may or may not know, we had organized a pep rally for the last half day of Thanksgiving. However, due to some unfortunate events such as the weather, it was unfortunately canceled. But we are still able to celebrate our athletes in the white gym with sort of like a cool little video that we made for the Ramble, and it will be airing soon. So if you see it on YouTube, we would love if you watched it. So definitely support our fall sports. They do such an amazing job, and they're really, really cool to see, you know. And another big event that we had for Student Council was the canned food drive. It lasted from November 11th to the 22nd. And thanks for all the support and everything, because we were able to raise over 2,300 cans to be donated to Penridge Fish. So thank you so much for all of the support. You know, getting all the parents, the students, and the teachers especially really, really made people's Thanksgiving. So thank you so much. And of course, the second block class that collected the most cans will receive a donut party. So that was definitely the motivator for a few, I definitely know. In other news, in the new year, we have our second dance, the Winter Ball, which I know Student Council is hard working on planning and everything. We're really, really excited for that. But on our last week before the holidays, later this month, we're going to have a Spirit Week. And so we really hope to bring the school together again, just to show that, have a last sort of week where we're all festive and everything. And we're really excited for that. And so, as I mentioned before, sort of like with the student body, we're excited for the beginning of the winter sports. I know I'm part of winter track, so the winter workouts, they've been tough, but I'm excited for this season. I really am, and I know that all the other winter sports people are definitely excited for that. And I know just hearing some things around the hallways, the different musical events are happening. So the instrumental concert for the band and orchestra is going to be on December 7th at 7 p.m. And I know my sister is even going to be in the choir singing at Grass, and so I'm excited for that as well. And it looks like, I think our choir will be performing on December, I think, 12th at 7 p.m., pretty sure. And there's just a little reminder here saying that the half day of school on Friday, December 20th, we'll start our winter break and we will come back to school on Thursday, January 2nd. So thank you so much again for all the support that you've given the student body, and I really appreciate everything you've done for us, so thank you.
All right, moving on to the consent calendar. I'd like to make a motion for items 11A through I. Make second.
Second.
Second. Mr. Kaufman, questions, concerns, or pulling anything out? No more questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Motion passes 9-0. Moving on to curriculum.
At our November 9th curriculum meeting, we heard presentations to add courses in AP Latin, Advanced STEM, Computer Design, and STEM Innovation Labs, as well as continuing discussions on how to continue improving and innovating with our middle school math curriculum. We also received an update from the administration on the approval of obsolete books that will be before us tonight. So first, we are seeking a motion to approve the following curriculum improvement proposals, A through D, listed below: AP Latin, Advanced STEM Lab, Product Design and Development, STEM Innovation Lab, Manufacturing and Product Entrepreneurship, and Honors Advanced Computer Design and Animation.
I'll second.
You can give that as a motion from him. He made that motion,
Okay.
she seconded.
Christine seconded, okay. All, questions, comments?
Just a comment, I think these are all really exciting programs, and I'm very thankful to the curriculum committee and the admin putting together. And if you're a parent with kids in the high school, I would definitely look into these.
I agree. I just wanted to add that I was really pleased to see the creative thinking of our staff with the introduction of these courses, especially as our nation looks to reshore manufacturing businesses, and it gives our students exposure to what happens in the real world and how to approach these important disciplines. I also wholeheartedly agree with Mr. Andrew-Kaity's comment in our committee meeting about these courses giving the students the opportunity to move around and work with their hands and not be tied to a screen necessarily. They also seem like good electives for students who may not think tech school is necessarily the right path for them. And I also really enjoyed the conversation about the advanced computer design course with Mr. Sudak, a really talented teacher with deep experience in his craft.
Anyone else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Motion passes 9-0. Brad?
All right. We also have a motion to approve obsolete items A through H. Listed in board docs.
Take a second. Did I hear a second? Leah seconds. Any questions?
Ricky seconded.
I'm sorry. Ricky. Ricky seconded. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion passes 9-0.
Our next curriculum committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, January 6th.
All right, moving along to facilities, Mr. Cormack.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I needed the vice president to do that, thank you. Moving along, we have a motion on obsolete items A through B. Looking for a second?
Second.
Second, Sharina. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion passes 9-0.
Next facilities committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, January 13th, 2025.
Moving on to finance. First is approval of contracts. I'd like to make a motion to approve contracts A through D. Learnwell, Educational Services, Museum of American Revolution, North Middle Field Trip, Museum of American Revolution South Middle Field Trip, and the Music Theater International Spring Musical at Central Middle School for March. Can I get a second?
Second.
Ms. Kaufman? Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Motion passes 9-0. The next finance meeting is scheduled for Monday, January 13th, 2025. Moving on to personnel. Sharina.
Thank you. Personnel, first, it's a motion to approve the following job descriptions, A through D below, which include Director of Pupil Services, Supervisor of Special Education, Personnel Care Assistant, and Teaching Assistant in the classroom.
Second.
Second, Mr. Corman. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion passes 9-0.
Thank you. Next is motion to approve the MOU between the Penridge School District and the Penridge Education Association.
Got a second? Do I have a second?
Second.
Again from Mrs. Rash. Questions or comments? I just wanted to add is what I spoke about earlier, and I think it's a great example of the board working with the administration to craft a solution that actually, in this case, was a win-win. It's not always that way. But the fact that the teachers are getting more planning time, which lets them be more prepared for class, and doesn't cost us any additional funds, it's a great thing. And helps with our employee satisfaction, which is what we are about too, because we need to keep our talent here. And that's why we're pretty pleased that this was worked out between the groups, and we believe we support this. So, any other questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion passes 9-0.
Also, sorry about that. Motion to approve the tenure recommendations for Mrs. Heidi Marr and Mrs. Sarah Rupczynski. Are either of you here today?
Watching.
Watching. Well, thank you.
Questions or comments? Or did we get a second?
We did not.
Oh, who seconded?
No, you asked for it.
Yeah, do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Statistic. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion passes 9-0.
The next Personnel Committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, January 13th.
Moving on to policy.
Thank you. We held policy committee on November 11th, where we discussed the policy update plan, as well as second read of political activities. Up for vote is motion to approve reinstatement of policy 321, political activities, as second read, and repeal current policy 321, advocacy activities. That's the motion.
Second?
Second, Mr. Coughlin. Questions, comments?
I have a comment, Ron. I just want to add to what Ms. Badillion said. Initially, when this policy was put in place, it was because there were some issues. It's not at all about excluding anyone. I'm going to vote against this, but I do want to say that I appreciate that. I believe it's been put on policy updated revision to address an AR with this, so that there are guidelines for staff, and our administration will, handle the ins and outs of that, which I trust them to do. So I appreciate that. I certainly feel under no circumstances teachers should be discussing things they're not qualified for, and should absolutely never be hiding anything from parents. That's really how this came about. But again, even though I don't support it, I appreciate that. I think our administration will guide the teachers and the staff in general in what is and isn't expected.
But is that accurate, that the administration will do the AR? Is that accurate? Sorry, just, because I was going to bring that up under old business, because I wasn't sure if that was something. So I wanted it to be up for discussion or...
Right, so the email I sent out to the board was that we would add it to the policy update plan to discuss next steps, whether it's an AR or what's needed.
So it will be on the next committee agenda?
Yes, it's
Okay.
part of the policy update plan discussion.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I was going to say this for later, but I'd like to add that I think there is an important role and that the administration plays in working on either policy AR or some sort of guidelines, where we do set some basic guidelines. But I'd rather have them do it than political action committee or the ones who were involved before. So I'd rather have them put that together and work with us in the community to make sure it's fair and doesn't discriminate, and something that our school will be behind, and that also protects what I would say are few and far between instances in my business world. If you make rules up for the outline, few 0.1% people that are causing trouble, it ruins the atmosphere of the rest of the people. So I'm not about that, but I'm sure that I'm confident that the administration can police this effectively without the need for a policy that is so vague and discriminatory.
I just wanted to say something. To give perspective to my vote, I would like to acknowledge that the policy we would be reverting to policy 321, political activity, is one that we've had for many years and was working before the advocacy policy was created. Under the political activity policy, our teachers were supporting all of our students, and with changing it back, they will continue to do so along with their parents. There is this narrative that taking away the advocacy policy will allow teachers to work in secret behind parents' backs, and that is not the case, nor are we encouraging such behavior. What we're supporting and encouraging is our teachers to engage with our students in appropriate manners to guide them through their educational path, as they have been doing in years prior. Under the political activity policy, our academics have been balanced, and they will continue to be so. Our goal is, and has always been, to provide our students with a well-rounded, robust education in a space that is both respected and safe, all while working hand in hand with students and parents. In addition, if the administration does feel that there's need to be discussion about an AR, I would welcome that conversation. Thank you.
I'd like to add, I'm encouraged to hear us talk about developing something that, I guess an AR or guidelines or something along the lines of a code of conduct or, again, guidelines that protect our students and our staff. I do support the principle of the original 321. Of course, staff should not be using district time or resources for political activities. But at the same time, it's important to establish boundaries and rules of engagement for all of our staff, including in the classroom. in terms of stating personal viewpoints to students, advocating for certain positions. It's just responsible, and we do it in the business world, we do it in our families, in our homes, on boards and organizations, so I don't understand why we wouldn't do it in our school district as well. So I would feel better if we would have approached this policy like we did with the library resources policy, which in the end passed with strong support from more than a majority of the board. You know, we addressed it as a whole and together rather than passing one thing and coming up with the AR later. But I'm encouraged and hopeful to hear, you know, the discussion tonight.
Anybody else? We'll do a roll call.
I have a comment.
Oh, sorry.
It's important to recognize that while the current advocacy policy is being presented again as beneficial and safe on the surface, if you look deeper, you'll become aware of more damaging consequences of the current policy. The current advocacy policy has not only removed pride flags, but also posters and presentations that celebrate diversity of skin color and other cultures. It has led to parents and even some board members taking pictures of things they see in classrooms and reporting them to administration. This is what's happening. This policy, it was in reaction to staff publicly supporting GSA events, like what was mentioned, but the advocacy policy allows student-led events like a day of silence. So I please encourage everyone to really understand what was happening behind this. It also was in reaction to Banned Book Week was something that this policy was written for, and the poster that was referenced was simply a poster that said, "Love is love." There has not been one consequence of the current policy that has done anything other than target specific groups of our students and paralyze our staff as to what they can do to help. Who someone is not controversial. Restrictive policies that target specific students and staff for who they are not only harmful to those groups, but create a ripple effect that impacts the entire district, leading to a general sense of insecurity and mistrust. It's crucial, especially for board members, to carefully evaluate the broader impact of these measures to ensure they truly serve the best interests of all students. When one group is singled out on a policy level, it erodes the trust in the fairness and impartiality of our system. This leads to all of our students feeling vulnerable and fearing that they could be next. Advocating for one group does not diminish the importance of other groups. It's about addressing specific needs and challenges to create a more supportive environment for everyone. That is the definition of advocacy, not the ILC written one that is in the current policy. When students observe advocacy for others, it fosters a sense of safety and reassurance, even if they are not directly impacted. A visible support demonstrates that their needs will also be addressed as they arrive. Knowing that there is a system in place to advocate for all individuals helps build trust and confidence. Most importantly, and the most upsetting, the fact that the current policy targets students and staff for their sexuality and gender, labeling them as controversial and something not to be discussed, has set a precedent of discrimination that is acceptable. This makes all of our students feel that they are at risk of being unfairly treated based on arbitrary criteria around things they have no control over about themselves. This policy did nothing to help any of our students and has made things worse for all of them. Thank you.
So I support the repeal and the reinstatement of political activities. I think it's basically been covered. I don't want to take up any more time. I think that any policy that is targeting any one group is something that I can never be behind. If it's balancing the risk for even one student to not feel included in this school district, I mean, that's what I'm here for. I'm here for every one of our 7,000 students across all the buildings. So the policy that's in place now currently is discriminatory and targets other students. And education doesn't happen in a vacuum. These students show up, and if they are made to feel unwelcome, they're not going to be able to get the education that they deserve. And this policy puts a target on their backs. It makes them live in the, for lack of a better term, in the shadows. They have to hide who they are, and that's not acceptable to me. It should never be acceptable to anybody in this community to force anybody to hide who they are, which is why I support repealing this. And if we want to look at having an AR or another policy, that's fine. I believe that there are federal government guidelines and state guidelines that are already covering most of everything that's already been contended as an issue. So I think really all we're doing is spinning the wheels to try to get back to where we're at now. I don't think it's necessary, but if that's the will of the board to waste time to continue to target, then it is what it is.
Oh, go ahead, Brad. He's okay. I just want to point out that the policy absolutely never said students can express themselves in any way they want. The policy was about teachers advocating for or against, and teachers, Leah, you said publicly recently, a safe space sticker enables a student to know where they can safely talk to an adult about their sexuality. And that's exactly what was happening, and that's exactly why the policy was passed, because a teacher isn't qualified to help a student figure out their gender identity, and they're certainly not to do it and keep it from the parents. So to be clear, this was never about students not being able to express themselves. It was about teachers not being allowed to advocate for or against, and not being allowed to hide things from parents. Because again, remember, we did have a teacher, several, passing out a sheet saying, do you have a pronoun, may I or may I not tell your parents? So to be clear, and I think everybody knows that, but we keep telling a different story. Those are examples of how we got to this policy. It was never about students not being able to express themselves. Crystal clear, students can express themselves, and teachers are supposed to be focusing on academics. We have a guidance system in place for students. I know you said, what if the parents are not qualified to parent? Well, then we also have a social system for that. So if we really trust the teachers, we can trust them to refer a student to guidance, and we can trust the guidance to refer to a social system if we feel the parents are completely unqualified to have this information about their own child.
Okay, I think we're ready to vote. If they want to continue this debate, we can certainly continue it outside. Oh, did you? No, you can take your chance, I'm sorry.
That's fine. I just wanted to reaffirm my belief that it's important that we are restoring trust within our administration, within our teachers. This is one such way that we can do so to make sure that our teachers have the capacity to meet the needs of our students where they're at, to be able to help our students achieve their goals, to be able to help our students strive for the things that they want to achieve within their lives. And so I would very much like to move forward with restoring this to a political activities policy.
All right. Anyone else who hasn't spoken yet would like to? All right. We'll do a roll call vote then.
Ms. Kaczynski?
No.
Mrs. Blomgren?
Nope.
Mrs. Chaikin?
No.
Mr. Cormack?
No.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yep.
Mr. Merkel-Gump?
Yes.
Mrs. Rash?
Absolutely.
Mrs. Sharino?
Yes.
And Mr. Wertz?
Yes. Please.
The next policy committee meeting, hold on. The next policy committee meeting is scheduled for January 6th.
Moving on to the IU report, I attended the November board meeting. It was at the Everett Elementary School in Levittown, I believe, and it's home to 140 students. It's an old elementary school, and I included the reports where there's more details on what services the IU provides, and it's truly amazing. And kids with special needs, in some cases, end up going to that school. It's quite in a community and environment, and there's amazing people working out there. So if you'd like to learn more, please check out the attachments to the agenda tonight. And every time I attend a meeting, I seem to learn more about what the IU does to provide services for those throughout the county, and they do an amazing job. Next IU board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, January 21st. Moving on to the Upper Bucks Tech School. Mr. Kaufman, that's yours. Sorry. Not sure what happened there.
Joint Operating Committee met on November 21st, 2024. Just to go through some of the highlights, there's 71 co-op students with 3 career launch in the last 30 days from the meeting. Some NASA representatives visited the school, and 120 meals have been shared through Angels Sharing the Warmth. Randy Moyer donated 8 vintage outboard engines and service manuals with a value of $500 to Small Engine Tech. I think one of the biggest highlights is that we approved an MOU between Upper Bucks Tech School and Point Pleasant Plumsteadville EMS to allow Point Pleasant Plumsteadville EMS to be present and allow them to have a workspace on campus. So this helps to increase their coverage area for the residents in that general vicinity. And that's pending all personnel comply with mandated background requirements before being assigned at the UBCTS. A MOU was approved between the Upper Bucks Tech School Veterinary Assisting Program and Mill Pond Veterinary Practice for the 2024-25 school year. We approved a payment to SiteLogic in the amount of $87,329 for the work related to the roof replacement project. And then we also approved an amendment which got us back the owner's allowance for $11,500 that we had put in case there was wet insulation. The next meeting will be scheduled for Thursday, December 19th.
Chris, can I add to that? Tech had their open house. They had record numbers of kids showing up, as well as a lot of people enrolled and applied, not enrolled, they applied that night. So just wanted to put out there that the tech application is online for anyone interested in applying. That's all.
For some reason, I get cut off all the time, but it's okay. I was going to report November 7th, we had our open schoolhouse. It was a great success. We had over 50 applications filled out that night from 8th graders, 9th graders that are looking to move into the tech school. And they weren't locked into their particular vocation that they'd be looking at, but it gave them an opportunity to get their name in the system, which I think is extremely important. As Ms. Bloomgren had indicated, we had over 900 cars in the parking lot that night, which we don't have 900 spaces. So we had a lot of activity. There's a lot of activity generated by the manufacturing companies that are working with us. So I think overall, looking at where the tech school was on November 7th, we're sounding success, and I think you're going to see some great things come out of our kids. Thank you.
I'll just add one more. That the one thing that comes to mind is if anyone is aware of it, because I'm not on there, what the expansion plans is, because I know we have a waiting list, and it sounds like the future is bright for this program, and we just want to make sure that that we're prepared to handle these kids. Or what, can anyone update the public on what's going on for the future for that?
I'm not sure that there's been discussion for update or expansion up there. I know that some of the buildings have been repurposed, such as the cafeteria has been repurposed. So I know that there's room to grow, but I think long-term forecast is something that needs to be looked at to expand that building there. I mean, there's a potential for so many different programs up there that I think would be beneficial to all of our students. I mean, just looking at the current climate, manufacturing is a big hot button career choice, and there's so many things that go along with manufacturing. I think that there's a potential for so many programs up there. It's just finding the space, being able to expand.
Right, sorry, Ron, because you were asking about programs expansion as well?
I just want to, there's a growing demand for it. I don't know which programs, I don't know if you need more space, I don't know if you can
Right now,
repurpose
yeah.
existing, and just want to know that we're prepared for the future, because for Penridge, we can't turn away kids because there's no space, but that's what's happening at the tech school, or there's a waiting list. I don't know if everybody gets in. So that's just why I was trying to bring
There
it.
is, we did go on a tour at the last programs committee meeting downstairs where they used to have cabinetry making, and Kubota, there was a representative, Bob, you help me too, if I forget, that came out to speak about working on the engines and basically the percentage of Kubotas like in, locally and nationwide. So that could involve 3 programs and adding an additional one. So that's one in the making, and there was another one that we kind of like just breached discussion and looking at, but there's definitely option. They do a really great job maintenance over there. They've been there, new people now for like 2 or 3 years, but it's very clean, it's very neat, and they're really cleaning out some old spaces, trying to make room for them. Just like having more bigger farm animals to be able to come in. There's discussion on that, but obviously everything takes a lot of money. So also we have a new business person over there as well, and trying to just get on top of that, and maybe if it's like a 3-5 year plan. But I feel like it's definitely going in the right direction with trying to increase programs, because as Ron, you said, there is a waiting list for a couple different programs.
Ron, real quick, just so the group understands, the audience understands, is that we are broaching a 5-year study, a building study on where the current buildings are located, if we need to expand those buildings, and the different programs available that we might be bringing in. But again, it's critical that everyone understands that we have 3 ascending school districts that support, and they support the tech school, not from the standpoint of looking at the programs, but financially. And they are our partners in moving forward with any expansion plan whatsoever. So we need to have all 3 school districts working in conjunction with us. And I think we've really embraced that idea with the current way in which we're looking at bringing students to the school in the evaluation process and so forth. And we've approached a new program that we released to the school districts, and so far we've gotten some very good positive results from it, and looking at how we handle so many openings with so many extra students. So I think it's a good process, but again, we are looking at long-term goals and programs that might support additional growth. But again, everything is based on dollars and cents. So we don't move forward unless we have Mr. Sean Daubert over here and Mr. Barrios to tell us that we're working in the right direction. But again, it's a tough dice to be able to say we want to expand the tech school, but at the same time it's going to cause the taxpayer X. So we are making sure that we run close to breaking even all the time. And I think this year, for the first year, we'll actually see that. So that's a kind of a small financial report. Steve Kern, our financial person, will be back here sometime in the late winter to give a report on the financial aspects of the tech school. Thank you.
Okay. Chris?
Good.
Just have, okay. Next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, December 19th. Any new business? Any old business? We have the public comment for the segment.
I just wanted to say real quick, it's probably old business,
Yeah,
but
sure.
a couple weekends ago, I was able to attend a performance of Into the Woods by the Young Performers Collaborative, which is a local club that made up largely of Penridge students. And it was incredible, and they're so talented. I cried, they're so good. But I know they're performing Les Mis this spring, and I highly encourage everyone to attend. You will not be disappointed. Thank you.
There's no public comment? Okay. Announcements, an executive session was held on November 11th, 2024. And the reasons for that are listed in the announcements section. And I will spare you reading probably 100 different words here and that. So you're welcome to look it up if you want more detail. Next school board meeting is scheduled for Monday, January 27th. With that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.